Good morning, everybody. So today we're going to talk about the steps and the goals of pruning. I was going to do this at school on the whiteboard, but the whiteboard's on the fritz again, so I'm just going to do it here in my kitchen. I'm going to do it old school. I'm going to use some pieces of paper that I've written up for you for notes for me and then to show to you. So normally we kind of do goals and steps in two different mini lectures, but I'm just going to put them both together today and talk about them at the same time because you really can do it that way. So we have 5 basic goals of pruning, and we're going to integrate the steps. They are kind of the same as the steps, and they're actually a really good metaphor for life, kind of the things that you prioritize as you're doing something. All right, so when you are found your tree or shrub that you want to prune, or even when you're working in the greenhouse and we're pruning on greenhouse plants, or in your home or pruning your house plants, just kind of keep these steps in mind as the best way to do your pruning. If you do things in the wrong order, you're not doing the plants any good. And what you're going to see as we go through the steps is the plant being beautiful is actually the last goal of pruning. But by doing the pruning in the right steps, the plant just is more beautiful because it's healthier. Okay, so your very first goal of pruning is, say I'm going to go outside and there's a tree in my yard that's just, it's a mess. It needs to be pruned. Could be anything. Could be an evergreen shrub, could be an apple tree. The very first thing I'm going to do is look and see if there are any branches that are dangerous. Might be that it's already broken. It might be that it has a really weak crotch. It might be that it hangs out over where I'm going to park my car. I can remember a family that I knew here in Walpole who had a big, huge old pine tree that they loved in their driveway, the edge of their driveway. And that's just a tree that has a tendency to sometimes just drop these big, heavy branches right there. So first you want to look and see if there's anything that actually is dangerous. The next step is going to be to take off anything that's dead or broken. Kind of step back, and anything that's dead, and we'll do this when we go outside on Thursday, anything that's dead, you just take it off because it's not going to ever turn into anything for you. And you actually, when you take out the dead stuff, you're also achieving some other goals. It's good for the overall plant health. It's going to let light inside. So anything that's dead, anything that's broken, and just like in the greenhouse when we grooming plants, when we see that dead or broken stem, we take the whole thing off. Just like we take the whole leaf off on a fern, we take the whole thing down to healthy wood. So you want to make sure when you prune your dead or broken branch, you prune it all the way down to the next one that's healthy. At this point, so this would be goal number 2, but step number 2 as we go through pruning. And at step number 2, along with the dead and broken branches, this is where you would prune out all the suckers and the water sprouts. So you would go around the base of the tree, and I didn't draw one up for, so let's put some suckers on here. You would go around the base of the tree and you would cut all these suckers out, and you would go down as deeply as you could to the right up against the trunk of the tree. They'll be coming out. Sometimes they're coming out from the rootstock, if anybody remembers that from when we talked about grafting. And it could be a different tree than what's growing up on top. But you want to cut those suckers out as part of goal number 2, along with dead and broken. Goal and step number 2, along with dead and broken. The other thing that you're going to do then is take out those water sprouts, and you'd also take out any crossing branches. So if you look at this tree, you'll see that crossing branches, the apple tree at school is a great, the big apple tree that's right outside of the greenhouse is a great specimen to do this step on. It's something that you would never notice unless we were doing this unit. But if you look up into the canopy of the tree, what you'll see is there are these branches that grow weirdly across like this, where they should be all growing in this nice open shape. So you would take these branches off, you do a flush cut right alongside where the collar of that branch is coming out of this original one like this, and you take all these off. So you look for those crossing branches. You would also take out any water sprouts at this point. So that's goal number 2 and step number 2 remove any dead or broken branches, and then also take out the water sprouts and the suckers and any crossing branches. Step number 3 is to control growth. Step number 3, goal number 3, control growth. This is for height. This is for width. Trees and shrubs have an overall maximum height and width that they're wanting to attain. Some of this goes into your plant selection and right plant, right place. You want to make sure you pick something that's going to fit your site. But even still, you're going to want to maintain the size of it. You don't want it to get too tall. You don't want it to get too wide. And it's better to stay up on that than to really hack into something years later. So it's step number 3 and goal number 3 is to control the growth of your plant. Step number 4 is to add light. This is a really important step, especially with hedges and things that tend to get a little too dense on the outside. The crossing branches, taking out those crossing branches also adds light to the inside of the tree. The tree needs light to be healthy and to create photosynthesis for itself. One of the problems with those hedge clippers that we were talking about the other day, where you go across the entire top of a hedge and it cuts everything all at the same time, is when you take that top layer, just the top layer of branches off, then it branches out, right? You're interrupting apical dominance and it's going to branch out. And so what happens is you have this really dense outside layer of greenery that doesn't allow any light to penetrate into the shrub. And when that happens, there's no greenery and no foliage can grow on the inside of the shrub. And that's why sometimes you'll see shrubs that are pruned really tight like that with a hedge trimmer, either a handheld one or a mechanical motorized one, that they'll have some big woody, kind of ugly, foliage-less branches all internally with no greenery at all, and then just an outside layer of green. That's because it hasn't had any light penetration for a long time. So when I prune those kinds of trees and shrubs, sometimes I do use a hedge pruner because it's just so overwhelming that you need to do that. But there's a nice U out in front of the greenhouse that we would use for this pruning class. And we try to do as much hand pruning as we can because you can still get that overall shape. So if you're going to have if you want to make that shrub round, you can still get that overall round shape without doing it so densely if you hand prune the pieces. If you step back away from it and hand prune, that allows more light penetration into your shrub. You also do this with apple trees quite a bit, or other fruit trees. They really need a lot of light to be healthy and to provide a lot of fruit. So adding light or creating light penetration is goal number 4 and step number 4. The very last goal and the last step in pruning is to make the plant more beautiful. So now you've got your plant, you've taken out all the stuff that's dangerous, you've taken out all the stuff that's dead, you've taken out all the cross branches, you've cut in for some light if you can, and now you're going to step back and just look at it for its attractiveness and see what you have left to work with. And from there, you're going to maybe shape it a little bit more using proper pruning cuts to make it as beautiful as possible. So the aesthetics or the good looks of the plant when you're pruning is really the last thing you focus on, because all those other things create the healthy plant, create the happy plant, the plant that's going to continue to grow for you in that spot and be as productive as possible, whether it's to produce fruit or flowers or just a beautiful shade tree. You want to do all those other steps first. And after you do those steps, then you're going to cut into it and prune it just to keep it beautiful. So kind of like life, beauty's important, but all those other things really need to come first. Take care of yourself, eat the right food, get exercise, get out in the light, and then, just make sure things are beautiful. So those are the steps and the goals to pruning. On Thursday, we're going to be outside, and I'm going to show you a few actual pruning practices, and then that'll be it. All right, have a great day, guys.